Today we are on lesson 43, the fourth commandment, lesson 43 of Lessons in the Catholic Faith on the fourth commandment, duties of children toward their parents. The next lesson, lesson 44, will be the duties of parents toward their children. So honor thy father and thy mother. That's the fourth commandment. Exodus 20:12. Probably you're receiving this instructions in a class of adults. This lesson is given to adults because adults should teach their children the duties which children have toward their parents. The duties of parents toward their children are studied in another lesson. So, great introduction to for people contemplating sacrament of matrimony. God brings children into the world through their parents. Then, in his loving providence for the human race, he places the children under the authority of their parents until the children are able to take care of themselves. Therefore, God's order of things commands children to love, obey, and respect their parents. In fact, without this love, obedience, and respect, parents cannot fulfill their duties as parents. Without the fourth commandment, the family will become quickly and completely disorganized. It will be in total disorder. And that's what the enemies of the family, communists and others, want to do to destroy society. I don't know if it's still online, but back in 2020, I think, or 2021, the Black Lives Matter, in their official website, their statement of their agendas, one of them was to, I don't know exact word they used, but basically to destroy the traditional structure of the family, or to change the traditional structure of the family. And that's what the communists have striven to do: man against woman, woman against man, white against black, black against white, children against parents, parents against children, and they managed to make a lot of chaos and a lot of hurt in our society. As a priest, I can certainly tell you how much hurt there is from broken families or bad parents, bad children, etc.
Mhm.
We know that cancer attacks the cells of the human body, and that makes a person then sick and can lead to their death. So we can say anything that attacks the structure of the family as God meant it to be will be a cancer in society. And we see this all over the place in our world, in our country. So we have to strive to uphold a healthy family structure, not only for our own good and our children's good, but for the good of society. Besides the voice of nature and the voice of God, there's the voice of gratitude, which tells us that you must love, respect, and obey your parents. Why should you be grateful? You owe your very life to your parents, and you owe the preservation of that life to your parents. Consider the sufferings of your mother during the long months of pregnancy, the sickness and discomfort required to bring you into the world. And after you were born, her troubles really began. Consider the sleepless nights and the restless days that you caused her when you were an infant. And sometimes the father, too. And don't forget your father's care. During the best years of his life, he had to support you and provide for your welfare. He had to supply food, shelter, clothing, and education. This was his whole life. Parents give their lives for their children. The least children can do is to give their parents love, respect, and obedience. God rewards those who show love, respect, and obedience to their parents. And of course, here they're taking up normal parents, or at least good, decent parents. Unfortunately, some parents are hardly parents at all. They engendered the child or gave birth to it and hardly did anything else, or did everything else very badly. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thou mayest be long lived upon the land which the Lord thy God will give thee. Exodus 20:12. The Bible also says, he that honoreth his father shall enjoy a long life. Thus God promises longer life on earth if we obey the fourth commandment. God promises still more. He that honoreth his father shall have joy in his own children. One of the greatest joys parents can wish for on this earth is the joy in their own children. And that's like that joy is seen many times at a marriage. When a son or daughter gets married, they're very proud of their child, their son or their daughter. If they've heeded the parents' good advice, they're marrying someone the parents approve of and hopefully like, if possible. And that's a really happy, joyful, prideful moment for parents.
Hmm.
B, the obligation of children to love their parents. Just as children need love for a happy life, so also parents need the love of their children. Children should show love for their parents by signs of affection, by helping them, by praying for them, and by making the home a place of joy and peace. Children should be taught to follow the example of the Christ child who loved his parents, Mary and Joseph. Next Sunday, we'll be celebrating the Feast of the Holy Family, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. Adults fail in love towards their elderly parents by refusing to help them when they are in need, by failing to visit them or console them in their loneliness, by neglecting to obtain the sacraments of the church for them when they cannot go to church. These obligations oblige under pain of serious sin in many cases. Adults can and do commit this sin too often today. Many times, unfortunately, in this country or the Western world, parents get old. We think, oh, we can just put them away in some nursing home, let the nurses take care of them, and rarely come to visit them or see them. And that's sometimes abuse of parents too, especially if the child has the means, perhaps a large house that could be renovated easily to accommodate a parent with maybe some health issues or mobility issues. Uh, Sometimes they can't take care of them because of very complicated medical issues that only nurses and doctors are able to care for in a nursing home. But if we can and we refuse to help them, that's a grave sin. Or if we never request, a priest to come and bring them sacraments, the Holy Eucharist and confession, if the parents can't leave the home, that's also a failure of children, adult children, for their adult old parents. Dad always begged us when we were growing up, don't put me in a nursing home, don't put me in a nursing home. And that, you hope that would not happen when you have 9 children. The obligation of children to respect their parents. Because your bishop and your priest have their authority from God Himself, you must respect them even though you do not like them, or even if they have traits that are disagreeable to you. So children must also respect their parents even though their parents are sinners, or even though their parents treat them unjustly. They are still parents and have the right of the respect of their children. This respect is something natural. For instance, a decent boy will resent someone talking about the drunkenness of his father. Of course, parents should try to make it easier for the children to respect them. It is quite difficult for a child to respect a wicked parent, an adulterous parent, a silly partying mother, a profligate father who wastes all their money or who beats his wife, or his children. It's pretty hard to for a child. A child has to almost be a saint to be able to respect a parent like that. But if they could, in their mind, separate their emotions from reason, they would say, well, I still owe, a lot of things to my parent. He still cared for me when I was a child. He put a roof over my head, and the very fact that he biologically procreated me, helped to generate me, I still owe him that gift of gratitude.
Hmm.
I remember a few years ago on Mother's Day, I was watching this short video. It was like this young Australian man. He had been put up for adoption by his mother, and he just made this video for the internet. and he said, I don't know who you are, and I don't really need to know who you are because I'm very happy right now with the parents who adopted me. I just want to tell you, my mom, thank you for having me as a child, for bearing me for 9 months in your womb. And he genuinely thanked her for the gift of life. You know, that's what she gave him, and that's a huge gift that we can never repay our parents. As wicked as they may be, they have given us life, and that's worth our gratitude. It was quite a touching video. You know, he was truly grateful to her for what she did for him, especially nowadays when abortion is generally easily available, and many mothers choose to abort their child. So the gratitude is that much stronger for a child who has come to term and is born. As long as the children live, they must respect their parents even when they are no longer under their parents' roof. The respect always remains. The obedience does not. Once they reach majority or emancipation, they aren't obliged to obey their parents like when they were children, but the respect must remain. Even when the parents have died, children must respect them by praying for them. Children sin against the respect due to their parents by being ashamed of them in public. Like if your parents are poor, for instance, or disabled, or have other problems, by threatening their parents, by striking them, or by treating them with contempt. D. The obligation of children to obey their parents. The parents cannot take care of the spiritual and temporal welfare of their child unless he obeys his parents. Parents cannot do their duties as parents unless their children obey them. Now imagine trying to educate your children. How many children enjoy education all the time? Pretty few. Do I have
Mhm.
to go to school today? Do I have to keep studying this? Do I have to do this test? Yes, you have to. I'm your parent. Obey me. If the child chooses to disobey all the time, good luck trying to educate them or bring them up. Oh, that's obedience is important. You basically have to force children, at least at first, to do stuff that they have to do. Make your bed, do your chores, do the dishes. A young child should be taught to obey his parents without question, without delay, and without complaint. Prompt obedience. And that's a wonderful thing when a child is promptly obedient and a great joy to his parents. An older child has the right to inquire about the reason for commands given to him, but he does not have the right to disobey those commands. As a child reaches, teenager age after puberty, or for instance, they'll start to ask the questioning of things. But before then, there is no need and there's no good in trying to explain these things to children. It drives me nuts when some parents are trying to explain things to their 5-year old who's throwing a tantrum, or their 7-year old. Now, please don't do that, honey. There are other people around. You're making them feel uncomfortable. Please get off the floor. Stop kicking around, please. You're making mom very sad. The child doesn't care. You don't start reasoning with a 5-year old. You say, get off the floor right now, or you're not going to have dessert. Or when we get home, there's going to be consequences. You're going to get
Yeah,
spanked.
clearly laid out consequences. Yeah.
Hmm.
I've actually I'm not going to take us on too much of a tangent, but I've actually been watching a lot of short form videos regarding parenting. I don't skip them because I'm like, this is relevant to my future. And there's some really good ones out there because a lot of parents fail to uphold boundaries and consequences because for some reason, they want to say we. So like we don't throw rocks, like we don't rip up books, like we said they say that for some reason, but they're you have to say like you don't do that because for some reason you're sharing the responsibility with your child in a way that like relieves their consequences.
That is an
So there's a
interesting
lot of little
point.
things like
That is
that.
an interesting point. Yeah. I know there was a lady who mentioned, certain preachers, if they want to, like when they're more pointed in their sermons, they'll say you. I generally say we in the sermon, but of course I'm talking to mostly adults and to myself sometimes as an adult too. Um, that's true. If use the term you more, it would be very much that parental thing to a young child.
When you
I like
say we, you're talking about us like we're equals. But when you're talking to a child, you do have to have the authority and maintain the authority. So there's a distinction between you and me.
very good point. Yeah,
And I like that a lot. Yeah.
that is a very good point. Yeah. We don't throw rocks. It's like, yeah, mom, I know you don't throw rocks. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Children should be taught to obey not only because of the fear of the punishment of Almighty God. Above all, children should be taught the loving obedience of the Christ child who was subject to Mary and Joseph out of love all the time he lived with them in Nazareth. That is, of course, the ideal that parents should strive to instill into their children. The obligation to obey his parents ends when the child is married or reaches the age of 21, at least in canonical terms. Many times in many states in this country, it's 18. But if the child lives with his parents after he has reached 21, he must obey them in all matters of home discipline. Yeah, oh, I've had that discussion with my siblings many, many times, especially in past years. Years, like, okay, you might not technically have to obey mom and dad in that regard, but if you are living under the home, you need to obey their house rules. You know, it's the right thing to tell them when you're going out and around about what time you're coming back, you know, and to communicate with them and to do your chores around the house to keep up the house as best you can, not to be a burden to them unnecessarily, not to bring over rowdy friends without their permission and all that kind of stuff, not to be gone a long time or overnight without telling them. That's just not respectful. And also, even if you're living with a friend, it's right to let them know I'm going away. I won't be gone. I won't be here till so and so or till such a time. Otherwise, they could worry about you or have concerns don't that should be communicated, so there won't be concern or worry.
Hmm.
So the obligation to love and respect your parents never ends. E. The sinfulness of disobedience. When parents oblige the child under pain of mortal sin in a matter of great importance, the child who disobeys commits a serious sin. Parents may not oblige the child under serious sin in a matter of little importance. So if it's a great importance, uh, let's say, obviously going to mass on Sunday, getting out of bed to go to mass on Sunday, that would be a matter of great importance. Or I suppose if maybe it would be something like I don't know, the parents are disabled and they need their child to do something like go to the bank and do this big transaction that would pay off their debts. Um, that could be an obligation that would bind under the pain of mortal sin. Actually, my parents, a long time ago, knew a couple in Hawaii. I remember them when I was very young too. Larry and Olga. They were both blind, but they had children and they raised a family. Um,
Yeah, that
but
that rings a bell now. I think I remember that.
yeah, I think they used to live in um, Hawaiian beaches. I only remember
Yeah.
going to their house a couple of times, but I think they had glass eyeballs. Um,
Hmm.
it's very interesting, parenting children when they're both blind, but someone like that, could easily bind their children under the pain of mortal sin for an important thing. Like you need to go to the bank right now and make this transaction or something, or else we'll be in debt. But parents may not oblige the child under serious sin in a matter of little importance. It's like if you don't eat the rest of your food tonight, that's a mortal sin. Parents can't do that. If you don't eat your veggies tonight, that's a mortal sin. It's not, you can't make that a mortal sin. It's just a small thing.
Mm.
From the way the command is given, children can tell whether the parents intend to bind them under serious sin or under venial sin or under no sin at all. Usually it's not that complicated when it comes to obedience and disobedience. And many times reasonable parents, of course, would only oblige them under pain of mortal sin when it's already something quite bad. Like I'm 16 years old tonight and I really want to go out to party with all my friends. There are lots of boys and girls and maybe alcohol at the party and it's going to go late into the night. A good parent will be like, no. Or if you want to go, I'm coming with you. Sometimes I think parents should do that more actually. There was an older show, not the new one, but the old Cheaper by the Dozen. It was quite a good movie actually, made in the 50s, I think, and nothing like the modern one. It had a lot of good values in there. So the older girl, she was starting to become rebellious against her parents and the upbringing, and she met a young man at the beach, and he invited her to, I don't know, a prom or something. And father said, "Oh yeah, you can." He wasn't happy about it, but he let her go. So the boyfriend comes to pick her up at night, and her father all dresses up. And lo and behold, he gets in the car with her, and she, of course, wasn't happy about it at all. But he went to the dance, and he danced with her. And the boyfriend was actually, he said, "You know what? Your dad is really awesome. Basically, he really cares about you. That he came to dance, and you have a really good father." And she realized too that was true. Her father really cared about her, and instead of saying, "Don't go, I'm not going to let you go," he actually went with her. Of course, it wasn't like a party with drugs and alcohol and bunch of sexual promiscuity, but I think parents should maybe at times, if it's not too objectionable of a party, but there might be some danger, I think they should say, "You know what, you can go, but I'm going to be coming too." And that would be a good way to check on their friends as well, or make them not want to
Mhm.
do it at all. It's like, "Oh, mom's going to be there. I don't want to do this if mom's there." And if that's the case, maybe there's stuff she's wanting to do that she shouldn't be doing.
Or
Okay.
you just sick your other siblings, your other kids with your other siblings.
Yes, that could
Yeah,
be done
like you
too,
said.
but depends how old and mature they are too. It's not always the
Mhm.
proper thing, especially if they're
You might not be
younger.
able to do that with your first child.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes it helps. Just depends on the maturity of the other sibling and their ability to say no or to recognize a bad situation. F. The choice of a state in life. Children are not obliged to obey their parents in choosing to become a priest, a sister, or religious brother, or even getting married. Parents cannot force a vocation on their child under obedience. But they, however, are bound to consult their parents about such an important choice. There have been numbers of saints in church history who went against their parents' wishes and became religious, became priests or nuns, like St. Thomas Aquinas, for instance, or in an opposite case, I think it was Saint Francis of Rome. She was a widow, and she really wanted to give her life to God as a religious, and she literally had to step over the body of one of her children who put himself at the threshold of the door. She said, "No, God's calling me. I can't let myself be tied in by these earthly ties." So, of course, her children were already grown up and taken care of. They just didn't want to be deprived of her company. But she followed God's call over and above family ties. And vice versa, parents, let's say they're perhaps racist or they're rich and they don't want your child marrying someone who's lesser class. They could put forward reasons why they think it's a bad idea, but in itself, they cannot and they do not have the authority to prevent that marriage. If it's just on the basis of ethnicity or social status. Young people who are keeping company are seriously obliged to consult their parents about those with whom they are keeping company. Children should remember that their parents love them, are interested in them, have a world of experience, decades on them. They will give them good advice. Therefore, the children have an obligation to consult their parents in this matter. Parents, too, have a serious obligation to advise their children in the choice of a partner for marriage. Marriage leads many people to heaven. It also leads many other people to hell. Therefore, parents are obliged to do everything in their power to help their children toward a happy Christian marriage. If a girl is thinking of marrying a pagan, a drunkard man who will not support her, the parents are obliged to give sound advice and the child is bound to listen. Questions for review. A quick summary. What are the duties of children towards their parents?
To love, respect, and obey their parents.
Correct. And what is the obligation we have to love our parents?
What is the obligation we have to love our? Oh, I would say that is that it. Oh gosh, what is it called? There's an unconditional love. So even if we have bad parents, we still have love and thankfulness in our hearts that they brought us into this world.
Yes, true. How do we show respect to our parents?
So there's definitely ways that we don't. So there's things like striking them, and there's things like having contempt for them. We can even show respect by not being comfortable with other people disrespecting them. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, that kind of goes on.
Yeah, that was pretty sad to hear recently. The Rob Reiner, the movie director of The Princess Bride, he and his wife
Oh yeah,
were murdered by their son. Of course, he was addicted to drugs. Um, that was that was really horrible to hear.
Yeah.
yeah. And we only hear about it because he's a famous person. Like there's
True.
normal people, I'm sure, where this happens, and it's just that is like it's such a tragedy when like a child dies before their parents because it's like somewhat unnatural according to our expectations with like dying of older age.
Right.
But then for parents to be killed by their own child, like that is just extreme tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Number four, at what age does our obligation to obey our parents cease?
So
Mm.
in the US, it's technically 18 when we become legal adults, but it's more of that our obligations lessen more so than cease completely.
That's true. Like the general obligation to obey ceases at majority. It varies on different states, different cultures. In canon law, it's 21 or the age of marriage. That's the church law. Um, in the olden
Yes.
days, at least for women, like the Victorian era, you really didn't, as a woman, you really didn't have that emancipation at all unless you got married or became a nun or ran away from the house. So I guess that was another additional impetus for a lot of those young women of those days to find a suitable husband in due time that their father would approve
Mm.
of. Five, should children consult their parents when they prepare to choose a state in life?
Yes, children should always primarily consult their parents for important decisions, especially marriage.
Yep. Many times decent parents will see, whether that partner is suitable or not, and they're better truly able to judge in general than an immature young adult or someone who might be in love, falling in love, and blinded by that love as well.
Mhm.
When I was, let's see, that was the end of 2006. I really wanted to leave Holy Cross Minor Seminary, and I
Yeah.
wanted to go to a
And
certain, what was that?
clarify, in Australia.
In Australia, and I
Yeah.
wanted to join a certain religious community. I was only 16. My parents were like, "You really should finish high school," and it was a good thing that I followed their advice. I'm sure it wouldn't have turned out very well if I had gone to that religious community at that time.
Which community was that?
In Scotland, Papa Stronce.
Oh, was that the Redemptorist?
Yes. Hmm.
Right. That's right. With because of Father Alphonse. Yeah. Okay.
They told me later what he had said, but I didn't know at that time. However, even apart from that, it was a good thing that I finished high school for sure. Sometimes in the zeal of the moment, you can get blinded by the greater picture.
Mm.
All right, here's a little anecdote for the end of the lesson. The love of sons for their mother. Once there was a poor widow who had been deprived of the use of her limbs. She felt a deep regret from not being able to attend Mass on Sundays. When each Sunday came around, she would always say to her sons, "What happiness would I have if I could attend Mass today? But I cannot go, the road is long, and I am too old and infirm." On a certain Sunday, as she said these words, she broke down in tears. She fingered her rosary and kissed the crucifix attached to it with much love and devotion. As the events of this story took place before easy forms of transportation were available to most people, the widow's two sons felt deep sorrow at seeing their mother so afflicted. In order to satisfy the mother's wishes, they attached two long poles to her chair and prepared to carry her in that fashion down the road to the church. As they started down the road, the people stopped along the way to admire the love of these two sons for their mother. They even cast flowers along the path as the two sons would walk along. The pastor of the church was equally moved. He took for the theme of his sermon the words of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament. "Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord hath commanded thee." His words were inspiring as he compared the flowers cast on the path of the two sons as they carried their mother to church to the tremendous blessings God would soon shower on them for their expression of love and devotion. They are a model for all children in the respect and love they should show their parents. And that's
Oh,
a beautiful story to end lesson 43 in Lessons in the Catholic Faith.
indeed.